What is up, everybody? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Posted up in the hotel room right now. Just got back from the stadium. Took a nice little stroll back. It's a little longer than I anticipated. That's why we're a little late here. But let me know in the chat if you can hear me. All right. Just got a classic Budweiser from the front desk. As we all know, this is hops with pop. And you got to have some hops, or else we're not on brand. So, you guys like the sport coat here? All right. What's everyone drinking? How's everyone celebrating that win? What's everyone drinking? Grabbing a Corona, eating some cornbread like that. A little Buffalo Trace. That's a hell of a way to celebrate. As we know, I'm trying to get sponsored by Buffalo Trace. So if anyone can help out with that, let me know. All right, let me get this tweeted out and then we can just get to it here. We got a good amount of people in here right now. So how we feeling? The Chargers defeat the football team 20-16. Justin Herbert finishes with 337 passing yards. Chargers score the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter to Mike Williams after a forced fumble by Kaiser White, which followed a Justin Herbert interception. And the Chargers get the ball back with 6 minutes and 43 seconds left, and they do not give it up. I mean, Justin Herbert had some impressive drives at the end of last year, game-winning drives against the Raiders, against the Falcons, obviously that throw to T. Billy that he had in that game-winning field goal drive against the Broncos. But that was one of the most impressive drives I've seen from him since he took over as starter in week 2 of last year. I mean, that does not happen very often, where you have a team get the ball with almost 7 minutes left on the clock and they do not give the ball back. 4 third down conversions on that drive. 4, including a 3rd and 16 to Keenan Allen. He hits KJ Hill for a third down completion, back shoulder throw to Mike Williams, and then hits Keenan Allen again. And that's just Keenan being Keenan, you know. He has an option route. William Jackson was in playing nickel in the slot. He tries to overrun it to the outside so he doesn't make any contact with some of the other defenders. Keenan reads it, moves inside, wide open. Justin Herbert hits him. Ball game. Victory formation. So, to me, biggest takeaway is how this team closed out the game. And that has been a point of emphasis for Brandon Staley. He said after the game, you know, one of the points that we drove home was we want to be a fourth quarter team. We want to be playing our best ball in the fourth quarter. Because so many games are decided late, and you have to be at your best in those moments. And what did we see from this team? Justin Herbert throws an interception there early in the fourth quarter. I'm just going to get my notes over here for a second, just so I can make sure I give you guys all the details. So Herbert throws that interception early in the fourth quarter. Now, what happened there, Justin said that they were playing a type of coverage where if Herbert went to his second read, then the corner was going to peel off of his man and try and jump the route, called it a palms concept. And so he thought Anderson was going to move to the sideline and he was going to be able to lead him to the sideline, but William Jackson peeled off his man and ended up jumping that route. Herbert said after the game that he just had to put it on Steven Anderson's body as opposed to leading him. Anyway, great play by William Jackson. Washington gets the ball. The first play of Washington's drive, Asante Samuel Jr. comes crashing in off the outside corner spot, lays a low physical hit on Antonio Gibson. He goes flying. Kaiser White comes in from the back, punches the ball out. Chargers recover. 3 plays later, Mike Williams, 3-yard touchdown pass from Justin Herbert. on a fade route. That's the game winner. Next drive, we have the Joey Bosa roughing the passer penalty, which I thought was questionable. Brandon Staley agreed. But Joey comes back later in the drive on a 3rd and 16. Heineke gets free. It looks like he might scramble for a first down. Everybody that has watched this team is thinking about Patrick Mahomes scrambling on 3rd and 21 last year. And all of a sudden, here comes Joey Bosa from his spot at edge rusher and chases Heineke down from behind. Incredible hustle play. Chargers force a punt. And then, like I said, get the ball back with 6:43 left. And it was just precision from Justin Herbert. So let me grab, I thought I put the game book in here. I didn't. We'll get the final stats here. I'll open up the game book so I can get some specific stats for you guys. We got Justin Herbert, 31 of 47, 337 yards, touchdown. Keenan Allen finishes with 9 catches for 100 yards. Mike Williams, a career-high 8 catches for 82 yards on 12 targets, which is the second most targets he's ever gotten. Jared Cook, 5 catches for 56 yards. Jalen Guyton, 3 catches for 49 yards. KJ Hill, 3 catches for 30 yards. Josh Palmer had a big catch. And the Chargers did enough on the ground. I mean, it wasn't pretty. 3.1 yards per carry average, 90 yards on 29 attempts. But listen, that's a really good defensive front, and you just have to have enough of a threat there. Eckler broke off 1 or 2 runs that were close to first down, 10 yards or so. He had one on the final drive that was a 9-yard run. Larry Roundtree broke one, so there was enough of a threat there from the offensive line where they could keep that defensive line, keep that defensive front off balance, and just an impressive fourth quarter. So before I get into questions, if you do not subscribe to The Athletic, get my full takeaways at the link below. In depth on the fourth quarter, in depth on the third down efficiency, in depth on what I think was a really great debut from Asante Samuel Jr., in depth on Mike Williams' performance, what it means for the future, why I think he's going to be a huge factor in this offense based on what we saw from today. Because I think, Justin Herbert and Joe Lombardi said all offseason that they wanted Mike Williams to be a huge part of this offense. He goes out and sets a career high in catches in his first game. It's a lot more in the short area of the field, a lot more in the intermediate area of the field for Mike Williams, who primarily has been a 50-50 ball guy deep down the field, and he has a skill set where he can be a factor. Obviously, he had that drop before Justin Herbert's fumble, which we can talk about. He ran a great route, a sluggo, they call it, a slant and go, beats his man. Herbert puts it in the perfect spot. It's right there off his hands. So obviously, you can look at it 2 ways. You can say, okay, this is a knock on him as a player, or you can say, look at the production that he could have had if he just came down with that catch. You're talking about, at that point, a 100-yard game and 2 touchdowns if he makes that catch. So I'm expecting huge things from Mike Williams. But anyway, if you want all that with reaction from the players and coaches, all my takes, click the link below and subscribe. All right. Let's get to questions. I'm not going to go back through the whole chat because it's firing right now. So if you have questions, just put them in now. I'm looking at the bottom of the chat. Secondary feels like the Chargers' weakness. I disagree. I mean, their best player, arguably their best player, one of their best players plays in the secondary, so it's hard to call it a weakness. I thought Chris Harris had a good day, especially one drive. He had a pass breakup on the play where Joey was called for roughing the passer. I thought he was good today. Chris Harris played a lot of safety as well, with Derwin James moving up into the slot to play that big nickel package. So I don't think it's necessarily a weakness. However, there are some question marks. I don't think Nas Adderley played well today. And if you got the people that have been reading me for a while, remember I did the rankings of the 20 players most important to the Chargers' success this season. And where did Nas Adderley rank? He ranked 11th because a lot hinges on his ability to perform there at safety next to Derwin James. And that play down the sideline to Terry McLaurin, like, I don't understand how that ball goes through his hands. Like this, the crazy part to me about Nas Adderley, this happened a bunch last year where he was in position to make plays in the ball and just didn't. And the weird part is this was like the thing that made him an elite prospect coming out of Delaware. He was a second round pick largely because he was known as this ball hawking safety who could go out there and get you the football. And there's a perfect example of, and I know Michael Davis got called for illegal contact on the play. So even if Nas picks it off, it's not technically a pick, but it's not a 37-yard gain. And so Nas down the sideline goes up, tries to make a play on the ball, goes right through his hands. Terry McLaurin makes the play. And then the drive gets capped off when Nas is in single coverage on Logan Thomas and just doesn't even make a play on the ball there. And I think he was hurt at that point because he left the game with a hamstring issue, but that was a rough series for him. And, I asked Brandon Staley about it after the game, and he said, it was up and down. He liked his communication, but, he still has a long way to go and he has to improve. So I don't think the secondary is a weakness. But right now, to me, Nasir Adderley is a question mark. I think what we saw from Asante Samuel Jr. today was really promising. You're going to have ups and downs with the rookie quarterback. He's not going to go out there and be a shutdown corner from day one. He's going to make mistakes. It's how he responds from those mistakes. And today, he had that pass interference. Brandon Staley said after the game that it wasn't totally his fault. He was expecting help over the top, and it was actually Nas Adderley who made a poor read, and Asante Samuel Jr. ended up not having help over the top. So he was in a trail technique and ended up grabbing him to prevent the touchdown because he thought he was going to have more help over the top. Still, a negative play. He gets called for the penalty. What does he do? He comes back and makes two huge plays later in the game. Now, if you remember, 3rd and 10, Taylor Heineke throws a quick out to Diami Brown. Asante Samuel Jr. runs up, drops Diami Brown for a loss. Dustin Hopkins ends up missing that field goal for 51 yards. Who knows how big of a factor those 3 yards were in him making or missing the kick, but you got to tip your cap to Asante Samuel Jr. there. Then obviously on the forced fumble in the 4th quarter, he comes flying in and creates the initial hit that allows Kaiser White to punch the ball free. So I think they're in good shape in the secondary. My one question mark is Nasir Adderley. So overall, not a weakness, but definitely some things that they have to clean up there, and they need more out of Nas Adderley. I mean, it's just plain and simple. They need more. All right. How do you feel about the O-line playing really well versus the Washington football team D-line? Yeah, I mean, the one caveat here is that Bulaga goes down, and now you have Storm Norton at right tackle, and he gets beat by Montez Sweat very badly, and that's what caused the fumble, Justin Herbert's fumble, which we can argue about whether it was actually a fumble or not, but the fact of the matter is the only reason they're in that situation is because Storm Norton got absolutely worked on the right side by Montez Sweat. Outside of that, though, they performed. And I mean, you look at their 3rd down success, right? I think that's an indication of how improved this offensive line is. They had 6 3rd down completions of 17 yards or more. Their 3 longest plays of the day all came on 3rd down. And that comes down to protection. 3rd down, that is when pass rushers can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, especially 3rd and long, because they know teams have to pass. So can you buckle down and protect in those situations? And the Chargers offensive line, for the most part, was able to do it. So I think that was a big storyline for me heading into this game. I think that the offensive line did their job and performed well, despite that one hiccup by Storm Norton. I'm really excited to go dive into the All-22 this week and get a more detailed look at how that group played overall. It's obviously really hard to assess offensive line play live. So from what I saw, it looked good. I know early in the game, they were really having success running behind Rashawn Slater and Matt Filer on the left side. And so moving forward, I'm really excited to watch that film because I have a feeling that Rashawn Slater played really well. And I want to see that, the details of that in the All-22. All right, what else we got? How do you think the interior D-line played? They lost Justin Jones to cramping right around halftime. So Eric Banks was in there. Christian Covington got a lot of run. I didn't think the run defense was consistent enough. Washington ended up averaging 4.7 yards per carry. Gibson averaged 4.5 yards per carry on 20 attempts. It didn't end up coming back to bite them, but I thought, especially in the second half, the run defense could have been better. Obviously, Justin Jones being in the game makes a difference there. But I thought the run defense overall was kind of mediocre, and that's definitely an area where I think that the Chargers can improve, because I don't think they were going up against a really elite offensive line. So the fact that they were getting gashed a decent amount is probably an indication that the run defense needs to improve. But with that being said, the big run that Gibson had, the 27-yarder, was on Michael Davis for not tackling at corner. So it's not all on the interior defensive line. But, when you're talking about interior defensive line, you really want to focus on, okay, how was the run defense? And I thought it was okay. Pass rush in general, I thought was outstanding. I mean, Uchenna Nwosu beat Charles Leno to the inside, and that's the play that Ryan Fitzpatrick got injured on. I thought that was an outstanding move. Joey Bosa was just a menace all day, like he always is. Obviously, you don't want the two roughing the passer penalties, but he was in the backfield all the time. Lots of pressure. Then obviously he had one sack on the sack fumble. I believe that was his only sack. But we'll see on PFF when the pressure numbers come out. My expectation is he had between 6 and 8 pressures based on my notes. In terms of box score stats, Joey had 2 quarterback hits and a sack, which was that sack fumble when he beat Sam Cosmi off the right side. Defense is left. Michael Davis came back in the game, so nothing significant. All right. Roundtree is a lock over Josh Kelly. For now, yeah. Larry Roundtree looked great. I think their 3 best backs at the moment are probably Roundtree, Jackson, and Eckler. And Larry Roundtree gives you some flex on special teams. He's a better special teams player than Josh Kelly. And he can be a kick returner too. So he returned a kick today. So for now, I think those are your 3 running backs unless there's an injury. Is Guyton going to be wide receiver 3 going forward? It looked that way today. I mean, we'll see what happens as the season progresses, but I thought Guyton had a really good game. He obviously, had that one wheel route on 3rd and 3 that went for 22 yards. Had the drop in the end zone. That would have been a really tough catch. I mean, there was a defensive back right on him that would have clobbered him. You expected the NFL receiver to make that catch, but I think overall he looked good. We'll see what happens. Obviously Palmer's a rookie, so it's going to take some time for him to get acclimated. Sam Yee's saying that who asked the question is saying that the snaps are out. Where are you seeing snap counts? Those usually don't come out until the morning. So, yeah, for everyone asking about Michael Davis came back in the game after he got hurt. So, it's not significant. Anyway, going back to Guyton, yeah, I thought he looked good. We'll see what happens. I would expect Palmer to have a pretty sizable role as the season goes on, just based on how he played in training camp. But I thought Guyton looked good today. He made some big catches, and like I was talking to you guys about when they made that decision to keep Guyton over Tyron Johnson. He provides more. He's just a very special athlete, and he's big for the position. So He gives you some juice there. And today he was pretty clearly wide receiver 3. Is Parham not going to be a big contributor? Yeah, they went with a lot of 11 personnel today. You know, Jared Cook was always going to be the top tight end on the depth chart. I think it's going to be a week to week thing in terms of how they game plan and what kind of personnel packages they're going up against. Um, you know, I think this is just me speculating, but forcing Washington into the nickel package brought on a rookie corner, Benjamin St. Juice, on the outside, with Kendall Fuller moving into the slot. And I think that that was probably a package that they wanted to attack so they could attack a rookie corner. Mike Williams ended up beating Benjamin St. Juice on that fade route. So my guess is they went to fewer two tight end packages, less, 12 personnel is how they call it, because they wanted to attack that nickel package and bring a third corner onto the field and attack that corner on the outside. That would be my guess. So I think it's going to be matchup based. If they feel like Parham is a mismatch, they'll go in that direction. But my guess is that they didn't really feel that way today, and they just felt like um, this is the personnel package that we wanted to attack. Pairs up for Jason Verrett. Yeah, that's really sad. Reports coming out that Verrett tore his ACL, former Charger. Obviously, sending our best to him. Why did you predict the Chargers to lose this game? I mean, it was a really close game, so I don't think my prediction was off. I made the prediction under the assumption that Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to play the whole game, and he didn't. I think that was absolutely a factor. Um, but it's two really good teams, and I went with what I thought was going to happen, and I was wrong. But obviously, the starting quarterback getting injured changes things. Are you guys watching this game? There's looks like a Bears defensive back named Herbert. Did we know this? Okay, good question from Sam Yee. He says, I thought Eckler would fill the Kamara role, but 0 targets today, a potential trend or just a game script thing. So I asked Justin about this specifically. Like, they were protecting well enough and the receivers were running good enough routes where they didn't really need to check the ball down to Eckler. Um, you know, in a perfect world, you're doing what they did today. The offense played really well. Like I said, they had 6 completions of 17 yards or more on third down. So when your receivers are getting open like that down the field, when Keenan Allen is getting open on every single play, you don't necessarily need to check the ball down to your running back. When your running back has a ton of receptions, that's usually an indication that your receivers aren't getting open or your protection is breaking down and you have no choice but to dump it off. So I think it's actually an indication that the offensive scheme was working really well because the receivers were getting open. Um, I'm kind of surprised they didn't scheme up some stuff for Eckler. Uh, just as far as maybe running him on some slant routes, getting him involved in the screen game. Um, but I think a lot of it was, you have Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Jared Cook, and those are mismatch guys, and they were all getting open all day long. And, if those 3 guys are getting open, you're not going to see Eckler involved in the passing game that much because those other 3 guys are big, excellent route runners, and they're going to get open 17 to 20 yards downfield versus Eckler, who's going to be. So I wouldn't read into it too much. I think it was an indication of just how excellent those 3 players played: Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Jared Cook. And like I said, heading into this game, I thought that they had the upper hand in terms of their receivers against the Washington secondary, and that came to fruition today. Those guys were open. And Herbert obviously has the talent to, get the ball to those guys down the field. Getting some Dallas questions. We'll get into Dallas this week. Still Sunday night. Give me a break here. I haven't had a good chance to dive into the Cowboy stuff, so I will have you fully covered there, though, I promise. So Dan asks, what do you expect Drew Tranquil's role to be going forward? I mean, I told you guys heading into the season that Kaiser White had won that job next to Kenneth Murray at inside linebacker, and so Drew Tranquil's a bench player now. His primary role, at least based off this game, is going to be as a special teams player. Um, and so we'll see what happens. As Staley likes to say, it's an attrition position. You do get a lot of injuries at inside linebacker, but right now their two best linebackers are Kenneth Murray and Kaiser White. And I know Kaiser had sort of an up and down day, missed a couple tackles, but I mean, he's a guy that can make splash plays, and that forced fumble was the play of the game, changed everything. So you got to tip your cap to the guy. How was the Chargers fan base? Chargers fans showed up, man. I took a picture. Let me see if I can show you this, guys. Can you see that? That's a lot of blue there. Quite a lot of blue. Yeah, lots of blue. Yeah, so there was a one section of the stadium that was like almost entirely blue. So yeah, I was like thoroughly impressed with how many Chargers fans showed up. And also somebody shouted me out. I was walking to the stadium and someone said hi, which like made my day. All right, anything else? I got an early flight to catch, so I'm not going to go too long today. Anything else? Anything else? Joseph says a lot of drop balls. Yeah, that was the one knock on the offense today, I would say. The two turnovers in the red zone really prevented this from being a blowout win. I mean, that changed those two turnovers were brutal because you're deep in opposing territory, and you basically, that's 6 points at minimum that you gave up, potentially 14 points. So those were a big deal, in terms of the offensive production. Um, so yeah, but just in terms of the drops, yeah. Mike Williams had one in the end zone. Jalen Guyton had one in the end zone. Keenan Allen had one on third down. Jared Cook had one when Justin Herbert made an absolutely ridiculous throw, moving to his left, off platform, and then fired a missile that just like hit Jared Cook in the face, which was kind of a trend during training camp where like Jared Cook almost like wasn't prepared for some of the throws that Justin Herbert was going to make. So I think as they play more live action, because in training camp, you don't get those, what Joe Lombardi calls like second reaction plays where like a quarterback is bouncing out or escaping pressure, because as soon as someone gets close to the quarterback and touches him, blown dead, whistle, end of play. In live games, Herbert can shake a tackle and get outside the pocket. And so these are situations where, Jared Cook and him have to iron some things out. But that was another drop. So, yeah, definitely could have been a lot better for the offense. And I think that's what's encouraging. You had two red zone turnovers, and I counted 6 drops in the game, including one in the end zone, 2 in the end zone. And so you put those together and you're like, okay, it could have been a lot better offensively, even though it was a really, really strong showing. Someone says I thought that was Guyton. Guyton also had one that hit him in the face, but he wasn't really ready for it. That was on third down. Yeah, thoughts on the fumble touchback. I watched it on replay, and I honestly didn't really know. It struck me as the type of thing where they called it a fumble on the field, and then New York just decided to uphold it. Like the call stands as opposed to being the call confirmed. That's what it felt like to me. I mean, you watch it live, and it's like that looks like a pass. I don't know. Like, I mean, he threw it. What did he throw it? 15 yards into the end zone? Like, I don't know. I don't know how you can call that a fumble. So I thought the call itself was bad, and then obviously the rule is pure shite. Like, I hate that rule that if you fumble into the end zone and it goes out of bounds, it's a touchback. What I think they should do is if you fumble into the end zone, the offense maintains possession of the ball, but you bring it back out to the 20-yard line and it's first and goal from the 20. That seems like a more equitable punishment for that play. But you think about it, you get all the way down there and you fumble into the end zone, fumble out, you reach for the pylon, right? Reach for the pylon, ball slips out of bounds. Other team gets the ball. That doesn't seem equitable to me. So I think the offense should keep it, and they go back to their own 20, first and goal. So you have 4 downs to get into the end zone. That seems better. Have the Chargers found their kicker? I mean, listen, he hit 2 kicks today. Looked good. We'll see how it plays out, but today was definitely a step in the right direction. Thoughts on how Lombardi called the game? I thought the offense was great. I mean, Herbert threw 47 times. Like, that's the recipe for success. Push the ball downfield, let Herbert sling it around, and run the ball when you need to. But, I mean, it's clear at this point that they're going to put the ball in Ten's hands and let him sling it around, especially on first down. So I thought the play calling was great. The philosophy was correct, and that showed up in the offensive production. This would have been a really excellent offensive performance if you take away, like I was talking about earlier, if you take away the 2 red zone turnovers and you take away the 6 drops, you're talking about a truly, truly elite offensive performance. And so you got some things to clean up, but it's a great, great, great foundation to work from offensively. And you come out with a win. You come out with a win. It's guys in the league talk about this all the time. It's so much easier to build off a win than it is to build off a loss. And so I thought this was a great start all around. All right. Any last questions? My Budweiser's done. You know what that means. I forget it. We came up with something a couple weeks ago. I totally forgot. When the hops are done, the something something. Someone remembers it, let me know. Something about the takes. When the hops are done. When the hops are done. I don't even remember. Please, someone help me. Jorge says, when the hops are done, the questions continue to run. There you go. When the hops are done, that stops the fun. I like that one. Hops out, pops out. All right. These aren't the ones I was thinking of, but I love them. All right, guys. Before I go, if you do not subscribe to The Athletic and you want a detailed breakdown of what happened today in Washington, click the link, subscribe. We got content coming for you this week. I'm going to figure out exactly what I'm going to do because I would like to do a film review for midweek, but I don't know if the All 22 is going to be up on Game Pass. So that's going to be sort of a TBD situation. If the All 22 is up, then we will do like a in-depth breakdown of how the offensive line played. If the All 22 is not up, I will be sad and we will have to pivot. But until then, read my takeaways here. I really appreciate you guys joining these. How did everyone like doing the post game? Was this good? Everyone like the post game hops with Pop? I think we'll keep doing these. Oh, sorry. Trying to clean my computer up. Do we like the post game hops with Pop? Yes. Loved it. All right. Sweet. Then we'll keep doing them. And obviously stay tuned with my Twitter for all my content. Until then, appreciate you guys. Peace out.